Hello friends, in this highly analytical discussion, I am going to examine the factors which are responsible for spread of left-wing extremism in India. You need to have very in-depth understanding that how a problem which was a problem of a village in 1967 became the problem for the country by 2010. And in the process, I will give you facts and the logic on the basis of which you yourself can conclude that yes, this is one of the contributory factor as far as a spread of left-wing extremism or Naxalism in India is concerned. So, friends, we are all set to start a highly analytical discussion on factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. What you need to understand in this regard that in 1967, Naxalism was a problem for one village. 1967, it was a problem of one village. And that village was Naxalbari. That village was Naxalbari in West Bengal. But by 2010, it became the problem of the country. It became a big threat to the internal security of the country. More than 40% geographical area of India, geographical area of India got affected with LWE problem. Okay. More than 100 districts, 100 plus districts were affected with left-wing extremism problem. More than 10 states, they got affected with left-wing extremism problem. And not only this, the year 2010 reported 2,213 incidents. And this is, I am telling you, on the basis of annual report which is published by Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. 2,213 Naxal incidents were reported in 1 year, 2010. And in these 2,213 incidents, 1,005 deaths reported. Not only that, intensity of violence, intensity of violence was very high. And since 2010, right, since 2010, till date, right, till today, if we see, there is a declining trend. There is a declining trend, and this declining trend is in every aspect. Naxal incidents, it's going down. Deaths reported in Naxal violence going down. Naxal violence going down. But even with declining trend, it remains a threat to the internal security of the country. So, till date, if we see, it remains a threat to internal security of the country. But the big question is, how a problem which was a problem for one village by 2010 became the problem for entire country. And even today, it remains a big threat to the internal security of the country. So we will examine the factors which are responsible. Okay. So we are going to examine factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. We are all set to start the discussion on factors which are responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. What I would just like you all to understand, that interplay of different factors have led to the emergence of the present scenario in which left-wing extremism remains a threat to the internal security of the country. It's not single factor, it's not one factor which is responsible, but multiple factors and interplay of factors. They are related to each other. So we are going to examine all factors which are responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. And I will be doing an analytical discussion. So many factors are responsible, but one factor which has played a bigger role as far as a spread of left-wing extremism is concerned, I would say poor and non-implementation of land reforms in some part of India, some parts of India, poor or non-implementation of land reforms. Friends, what I would just like you all to remember, that immediately after independence, we took up the exercise for land reforms. We were of the opinion that this natural resource, this scarce resource, land, should be distributed among people in a fair, just and fair manner. For that, we enacted law. But the law which we enacted for fair and just distribution of land as a resource among the people was not well implemented on grounds in some parts of India. And this is the reason why, even in independent India, we saw a wide gap between landlords and landless laborers. And one more thing I would like to add here, that not only poor and non-implementation of land reforms in some part of India, but along with this, the land acquisition for developmental projects were not beneficial for all stakeholders. I would just like you all to understand this, that for construction of roads, for mining, for infrastructural development, we started acquiring land. Government started acquiring land, state government, central government. But while we were acquiring land which belonged to people, in that process, we were not, particular about the process being beneficial for all stakeholders. I would just like you all to remember that even in independent India, we continued with land acquisition law of 1894 that was brought during British time. Only in 2013, we amended that law, we repealed old law and we brought the new law. The new law is known as the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. You all must have heard about this historic law which was brought in 2013 in the name of Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act 2013. Now, before this, before 2013, land acquisition was governed by Land Acquisition Act of 1894. And in that Land Acquisition Act of 1894, we were saying that if land is required for developmental projects, then the land can be forcefully acquired. Even without the consent of the landowner, it can be acquired. Before 2013, we used to give compensation only to landowners if land is being acquired for developmental projects and there was no provision for compensation to livelihood losers. Let me just explain this for you, that when the land is acquired by government for construction of road, yes, the landowner must be compensated. But not only the landowner should be compensated, but even many landless laborers who are cultivating on that piece of land and they are earning their livelihood, they should also be compensated. Now this provision finds a mention in the law which we have enacted in 2013. But before 2013, in India, there was no provision to compensate livelihood losers. Now we are saying that if land will be acquired, consent of 80% farmers will be needed. Now only we are saying that compensation should be 2 times and 4 times the market value of the land, fair compensation we are talking. But before that, before 2013, all these things were not there. And this was the reason why whenever any developmental project will be planned and implemented, local people will oppose that project. So while you are talking about factors which are responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism, you must talk about poor implementation of land reforms in many parts of India, non-implementation of land reforms in some parts of India, and the most important, the whole land acquisition process policy was not beneficial for all stakeholders. And that was the reason why dissatisfaction against government, state, anger against government developed among poor people in remote part of India, in poorly connected pockets of India. So one of the factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India is poor implementation of land reforms, non-implementation of land reforms, and the most important, the process through which government acquired land for developmental projects, that process for many years after independence has not proven beneficial for all stakeholders. And this has been one of the main contributory factor for a spread of left-wing extremism. In addition to this, another factor which has been responsible is imbalance regional development. Imbalance regional development. Okay, now you need to understand that if you see today, this problem of left-wing extremism is in states of Jharkhand, it is in the state of Chhattisgarh, it is in the state of West Bengal, it is in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Why? Because you will find in these states of India, you will find that imbalances are there as far as regional development is concerned. And I feel imbalanced regional development is one of the factor responsible for many socio-economic problems which India is facing. You will find one island of developed, one developed island surrounded by ocean of underdeveloped region in this part of India, where we have this problem of LWE. I don't know, but if you go to Jamshedpur, which is Tata Nagar in Jharkhand, it's well developed city. Very good roads, electricity 24/7, hospitals, schools, shopping complex, malls, employment opportunities, standard of living high. But 5 kilometers, 7 kilometers away from the city, on the outskirts if you reach, you can see India of 19th century. Even today if you go on the outskirts, you will find what? You will find a half-naked old lady traveling 10 kilometers to fetch drinking water. So, imbalanced regional development is one of the factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. Wherever inequalities are sharp, it acts as the breeding ground for a spread of left-wing extremism. Why you will not find this problem of left-wing extremism in Punjab, in Haryana, in industrialized states like Gujarat, Maharashtra? The problem is there in eastern part but not in the western part. Why? Because you will not find too much imbalance in regional development. Wherever inequalities is sharp, wherever imbalances are more, we find problem of left-wing extremism. Because what's happening? When they are seeing some development nearby, then they get reminded, those people get reminded that they have been left out in the process of development, and they are filled with anger against government. So, imbalanced regional development is one of the contributory factor for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. Another factor which is responsible for, lack of lack of inclusive growth, okay, lack of inclusive growth, and not only lack of inclusive growth, but I would say lack of, and these two are related factor, lack of people-centric development, okay, lack of people-centric development, and because of this, right, because of this, what has happened, these two, what has happened, rights, claims, or you can say interests, all these three are interlinked. Interests, or you can even say entitlements, of local people, right, entitlements of local people were not well protected in developmental projects. In developmental projects, okay, in developmental projects. So very, very important. I would just like you all to remember this, that first thing is poor and, non-implementation of land reforms, and related with this is land acquisition, okay. Second factor is imbalanced regional development, but all these factors are linked: lack of inclusive growth, lack of people-centric development. Because of this, rights, claims, interests, entitlements of local people were not well protected in developmental projects. You need to understand this. Okay. So what actually has happened, you just see, today we are talking about poor quality of air in Delhi. Every winters, when the quality of air will deteriorate in Delhi, there will be nationwide hue and cry. But go and see the quality of air in the coal mining belt of India, which is inhabited by tribal people. The manner in which we are doing mining, the manner in which we are transporting coal, in the lower atmosphere you will find heavy concentration of particulate matters, and very, very poor is the quality of air, but we don't care. Because in such belts of India, who is getting impacted with that poor quality of air? Poor people. And why there is so much hue and cry when there is deterioration in the quality of air in Delhi? Because, privileged people, influential people, rich people, powerful people are residing in Delhi. So what I am just trying to say, you need to understand this. Lack of inclusive growth. What is lack of inclusive? What do you mean by inclusive growth? A growth or a developmental model in which benefits of development should reach to all sections of society in a fair manner. If some section of society remain outside ambit of positive influence of development, that is not inclusive growth, right? That is not inclusive growth. Today, we have expressways. Today we have, world-class airports. Today we are talking about bullet trains. But go and see, in the remote part of India, we don't even have, a surfaced road. We don't even have a pakka road. Even today we have kacha roads. So what I am just trying to say, and whenever we are planning development, then we are making it more revenue centric rather than people centric. When we say that we will establish a power generating unit, electricity generating unit in some part of India, we say that how much that unit can earn profit. Why we are not saying that unit which we will establish in some part of India, half of the profit that unit should share with local people. And it's not necessary that they should share in form of cash or money, currency. Why can't we say that local unit, power generating unit, electricity generating unit will provide subsidized rate of electricity to all those poor people who are residing in 10 kilometers periphery of that unit. Why can't that power generating unit can say that they will establish one hospital and that hospital will provide free treatment to poor people residing in 10 kilometers area? Why we are too much concerned about how much is the profit being earned by that particular local power generating unit? So, lack of people-centric development. I told you that if you ask me that what is the main cause of problem in India, we are trying to bring money from all parts of India to Delhi. And then we are making efforts to reach, to make that money reach to all parts of India. Over centralization of powers in every sphere. Now, when we are trying to bring money from all parts of India to national capital Delhi, and from Delhi we are making attempts to make that money reach to all parts of India, what is happening? The corrupt and contaminated system is eating away the lion's share. Why can't we think of a system where we, promote local collection of taxes, local utilization, surplus to be brought to Delhi to be diverted towards deficit region? So, I am just asking you to touch upon this aspect, lack of people-centric development. Finally, whatever revenue government will earn, that revenue government is going to spend for welfare of people and to meet other expense as well. But every time when we are thinking of development, we are too much getting governed with revenue. And this is the reason why rights, claims, interests, entitlement of local people is what we have not been able to protect in the developmental projects in India. And this has been one of the factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism. I would say that these together have given a feel to the people, this has given birth to issues which are responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. Displacement, displacement of tribals, Dalits and poor people. They are not rehabilitated properly. They are not resettled properly. The land on which they have been living, inhabiting for years and for generations, that got acquired for some developmental project, but they have not been compensated properly. Go and see what is there in the mining belt of India. You know, when the mining license is given to corporate houses, private players, they are very much, directed through the terms and condition of the mining license that they cannot do, right, explosion for the purpose of mining beyond certain intensity. But since mining is happening in remote part of India, what you will find? That instead of, doing explosion on regular intervals, they will feel that they will go for high intensity explosion one day and then they will continue with mining for 1 year. But high intensity explosion, because in remote part of India, in the name of a state, you will find some lower officer posted of the rank of BDO who will ignore such things if they are bribed. The local police stations are managed and then high intensity explosion is done. So what I am just trying to say, now it will impact the life of local people, poor people. There will be cracks in the wall of their houses. When they are digging and, when they are digging and dredging land for mining, those companies are supposed to fill that after the mining is over, but they will not fill. If they have to cut a tree, then they are supposed to plant 10 trees and not only plant but nurture till the tree is attaining maturity, but that they will not do. They are supposed to compensate all people who got adversely affected with Mining Act, but that is not happening. Okay, so displacement of tribals, Dalits, poor, right, that has also been a factor responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism, and this also has, led to emergence of a field among such people, corporate exploitation. Corporate exploitation. So while you are, writing about, while you are thinking of factors responsible, you will have to touch upon this lack of inclusive growth, lack of people-centric development, failure to protect the rights, claims, interest, entitlement of people in the developmental projects, and these all together has led to emergence of a field among poor people, Dalit and tribal people, corporate exploitation. Okay? Corporate exploitation. Such people have developed a feel that they have been left out in the developmental process, and misery in their life is on account of failure of the government to reach to them. Okay, so you will have to touch upon these points. Now, in addition to this, right, in addition to this, one factor which has been very much responsible, right, one factor which has very much responsible, that is continuation, right, continuation of caste-based discrimination in independent India, right? Despite Constitution of India declared an end to it. Okay, and I feel that this actually is responsible for creating a breeding ground for a spread of left-wing extremism in India. What we saw, continuation of caste-based discrimination. When you will study the polity, constitution, at so many places, through part 3 fundamental rights, we said that there cannot be caste-based discrimination in India. But we saw caste-based discrimination even in independent India in many parts, where people from Dalit community, they were not even allowed to enter in temples. They were not allowed to sit in front of members of certain caste. They were not allowed to drink water from same well. This I am not talking when India was under British rule. This I am talking in independent India. So, those who were the victims of caste-based discrimination, when such people were reached by Naxal leaders, the Naxal leaders asked question to them that, do you want to have faith in the constitution which has failed miserably to give you a respectful position in the society, or you want to rewrite a new constitution for this country? So someone who is victim of discrimination will go with the words of such leaders. So continuation of caste-based discrimination, and I would say since 1990, we started taking affirmative steps to bring an end. To some extent, we have been successful, but even today, we have not been successful in completely eliminating and eradicating caste-based discrimination in India. So, continuation of caste-based discrimination in independent India, despite Constitution of India declaring an end to it, is a factor responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism. Now, in addition to this, right, there is no need for me to tell you poverty, unemployment, and livelihood opportunity, lack of livelihood opportunity. Unemployment and illiteracy, and these are mothers of all socio-economic problems. Any socio-economic problem you will think, these are responsible. Poverty, lack of employment opportunity, lack of livelihood opportunities, lack of educational facilities, illiteracy. Okay, so all this, even today if you see at global scale, you will find in South Asia in general, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan in particular, incidence of poverty is high, unemployment rate is high, illiteracy is still there. Okay, so these were also the factors which were responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism. In addition to, right, poverty, unemployment, illiteracy, I would just like you all to touch upon this, that in remote part of India, in poorly connected pockets of India, what we have seen? Lack of political activities, lack of political activities. So, weak presence of political parties in remote part of India, in tribal belt of India, in mining belt of India, in forested part of India, weak presence. Okay. So, in cities, in semi-urban areas, even in villages which are well connected, you will find that political parties have a strong presence. They have offices, they have office bearers, they have cadres. On regular interval, they are holding some or other political activities. So what is happening, that see, if one party is in power, all those people who have some complaint against government, dissatisfaction with government, they will come under the banner of opposition and will express their dissatisfaction in the form of protest, agitation, rallies, in the form of, a strike. So what is happening? Political activities are creating opportunity for ventilation of grievances. But in remote part of India, political parties have weak presence. So there is lack of any platform through which their grievance complaints can get ventilated, anger can get ventilated. So it's only building up and someday it's exploding in the form of, young people from those parts joining Naxalism. In democracy, political activities are very important. You need to have this understanding that when some party is in power in union or in the state, and if there are some section of people who are angry, who have complaint, who have grievance, who have dissatisfaction, they will come under the banner of opposition parties and they will express their anger. They will express their dissatisfaction. They will complain. So it leads to ventilation of grievance. But that is what is not happening in remote part. In remote part, tribal people, Dalit people, underprivileged people, marginalized section of society, they will see their elected representatives once in 5 years, only during election. Some among them will come just for asking them to vote for them. Okay. So weak presence of political party in a democratic country will always create breeding ground for Naxalism and similar problems, if grievance is not getting ventilated, if their complaint is not getting addressed, if they are not given opportunity to express their anger, dissatisfaction, complaint, so that has also been one of the factors responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism. Another factor is corruption. Okay? Corruption. And this corruption, particularly in welfare, programs and developmental projects. Right? Developmental projects. Corruption. And again, corruption is mother of all problem. Let me just tell you, people of India, particularly who are residing in villages, they are very, innocent people, very kind-hearted people, who truly believes in forgiveness. But what is happening now? Let me just tell you what is happening now. Today, because of media, every time when Prime Minister is speaking, when Chief Minister is speaking, when ministers are speaking, they are making big claims about development. But when people are not seeing the kind of developments which are being talked by frontline leaders in state government and central government, then they are getting filled with anger. So cabinet ministers, prime ministers, chief ministers, ministers in the state, and even district magistrates or deputy commissioners of district, collector of districts, while they are interacting with media, while they are talking with the people, they are saying these many kilometers of rural roads have been constructed. And when people in remote part, they see, the road is in pathetic condition, then they are filled with anger. So corruption. What is happening? There is leakages, there is pilferages in the developmental project. Benefits are not reaching to targeted beneficiaries. And when benefits are not reaching to targeted beneficiaries, and then there is a claim by leaders and people in government that they have done so much for different sections of society, then they are getting filled with anger, dissatisfaction. So corruption in welfare program and developmental project is one of the contributory factor as far as the spread of left-wing extremism in India is concerned. In addition to this, one problem which you should not write, but if you are writing this, then you should write the problem in with proper words. Okay. So I am very particular in choice of my words. So in initial days, initially, police response was inadequate or poor. So when problem started in West Bengal, and then when it entered in Bihar, in Andhra Pradesh, when it started in 70s, initial response of the police was poor or inadequate. But when problem acquired a big, structure and shape, then in the name of dealing with the problem with firmness, security forces and police used on some occasion force disproportionate to needs. And let me tell you, I am very, very particular in choice of my words. I am saying on some occasion, right? So initial response of police was poor or inadequate, and later on, right, in the name of dealing with the problem with firmness, disproportionate use of force, right? Disproportionate use of force. And this disproportionate use of force, right? This disproportionate use of force, right? On some occasion, not always, some occasion, okay. And this has, been responsible, been responsible for generating a feel among some section human rights violation by security and police forces. Okay. So I am very, very particular. In initial days, when this problem started appearing in villages, the response of police was poor or inadequate. They thought that this is like any other law and order problem. So their response was when some Dalit will report police station about exploitation by some upper caste people, police will not even entertain complaint, will not even register FIR. Okay, so initial days, response was poor and inadequate, and later on when this problem became big, then in the name of dealing with the problem with firmness, on some occasion, we have seen police and security forces using force disproportionate to needs and requirements, and that has been one of the factors responsible why some section of people in remote part of India have developed a feel that security forces are violating their human rights. So, in the name of dealing with the problem, action and conduct of police forces and security forces has led to further complication of problem. But friends, you should remember one thing, that many of the officers and personnel in security forces and police forces deployed in Naxal affected areas, they have opted for supreme sacrifice. Only because of them we have been able to deal with this problem to great extent. Only because of them we have been successful in reaching a point where we are saying that there is a declining trend of Naxal incidents, Naxal violence, deaths in Naxal violence since 2010 onwards. So we should have great respect for all men and women in uniform, khaki uniform or any other uniform. But having respect does not mean that we will, be blind towards their wrong deeds. We will be critical of their action or conduct on some occasion. So what we are saying? That in initial days, when the problem was, in the beginning stage, response of police was poor, and later on when problem became big, then in the name of dealing with the problem with firmness, on some occasion, police forces and security forces used force disproportionate to needs. And that is what is responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism, because some section of society in remote part, in tribal belt, in forested areas, they feel that security forces and police forces are violating their human rights. So these are the factors which are responsible for a spread of left-wing extremism. 2010 was the year when we can say that this internal security threat was at its peak, and since 2010 we are seeing a declining trend as far as India is concerned, related to Naxal violence, related to Naxal incidents, related to deaths and killing in Naxal violence. The quantum of bloodshed in Naxal movement is on a declining trend. However, even today it remains a threat to internal security. We have not been able to get rid of this problem completely, but we are hopeful that the way we are dealing with the problem, soon we are going to declare the end of this problem.